Hello, my friends. Jacob is here one more time. Thank you for pressing play, for spending a little time with me. I'm so excited that you're here. Little touchy subject matter today, sort of spooky. I actually described it as terrifying and wonderful on Twitter. You may have seen me posting some goofy little videos where I'm eating liver.
I'm really not liking this that much, I gotta be honest. I hope you all subscribed. The things I do.
There's a reason for it. It all led me to this show that we're about to talk about today, because there's a terrible thing going on out there in the world, especially when it comes to the children under 10. It's affecting them all. It seems to be like something that we need to discuss in detail. Because I had to talk about it. Everything came together. Everything came together exactly the way it should. Little breadcrumbs, one after another after another. Yeah, I'm like a meatball bumbling around in the dark sometimes. Had no idea what I was going to do for a show. And of course on Twitter I do like I always do. I'm at the gym and I forget to ask. Sometimes I forget to ask. And I said, okay, Lord, you got to tell me. I put a little tweet out, this one. And it's amazing how it all comes together. This is a show that you're going to want to stick around until the end. This has to do with the last plague. It has to do with possibly something that could be coming in the future. Something that is like the last straw. The straw, if you will, that broke the camel's back. Just like this was the last straw, the last plague of Egypt, the death of the firstborn in all of Egypt. Just like that was the last straw, finally allowed God's people to be set free, to inherit a promised land, after wandering and stumbling around in the wilderness for like 40 years. But that's besides the point. There's nothing new under the sun, and today we're in this very same position. Been talking about the plagues of Egypt for a long time. Back in 2020, September 1st of all things, I had a terrible nightmare about Ethan. And we're going to get into it. Because here we are today. It turns out like that nightmare may have kind of predicted what's happening right now. It didn't matter how bad the world got. It didn't matter how many plagues they had to deal with, whether it was hail and fire or locusts or darkness or flies or lice or frogs. Now, I have a whole video on what this means symbolically and spiritually. But today I'm here to talk to you about the significance of these plagues and with what we're going through today. You see, the problem is that with every terrible plague that was on the land, Pharaoh still wouldn't let the people go until this last one. This last one that I didn't even want to talk about. And I'll tell you why, because I had a bad dream about Ethan. And I woke up and I associated it with the virus of the crown. And I woke up and I was sad because in the dream he had all of these, it looked like he had a really bad allergic reaction to something. And I actually screamed, Danielle, get the Benadryl. I was so worried. But then Danielle tells me later that day that it's very concerning. It's very concerning. But we're going to start off with the beginning of this journey, which was me waking up in the morning and doing as I usually do, which is my custom. The Dan makes the coffee. I go downstairs. I have my coffee, try to answer emails. I try to do this, do that. A lot of the shows that I get, a lot of the ideas, people send them to me. I already had this show in the back of my head. I already talked about it with a couple of people. We're talking about the big outbreak right now that's going on all throughout the world, has people very concerned. I think they're almost up to 400 cases, or maybe a little bit more. Terrifying, right? Terrifying. But my morning started with me having my coffee, and I'm subscribed to a lot of different channels. If you remember correctly, I mentioned just recently, I put on Twitter that once again the tridents. There were 2 tridents backstage. In their studios, and I said, "Why the tridents are everywhere? What does this mean?" I want to put a pin in that because this is going to be my next show. Instead of doing like a long show where I kind of include everything, I think this needs to be a standalone show. But that trident, it's there's more to it than you know. I thought that we closed the chapter on it with the last couple of shows that I did. This one, I thought that was the end of it, but it's not. The story gets better and more concerning. But it's going to prove to you when we do this, when I do this next show, it's going to prove to you without a shadow of a doubt that God is in control and that it's about getting rid of all of the nonsense, the wickedness that stands in our way. And today's show is going to once again prove that God is moving against all of the nonsense, that there's going to be a big disruption in the world. I hope not. I pray not. Wake up in this morning, Implausible's on, and they got the Liver King on. The Liver King. I guess he's a guy, he eats a bunch of he eats the testicles of animals and the hearts of animals, and he's gone and he's stayed with a couple of tribes, and he was on the show and they brought out all this raw food, liver being the big deal, and he's known as the Liver King, and he looks like a barbarian, this guy. Of course, because this is, big news, the news outlets say that Logan Paul and Jake Paul both ate cow testicle. So, there you have that. But I'm watching this and I'm thinking, this is interesting. I've never eaten liver. I wonder if it's any good. Of course, I'm not going to eat it raw like this guy says you should do. I'm just not going to do that. But I thought, hey, maybe I'll buy myself some liver today just to try it out. Maybe if it's filled with all these nutrients and everything else. So that was my plan.
It's not bad, but it's definitely not enjoyable.
I even texted Anthony about this, like right before I got the revelation of doing this show, where he said, hey, we need bagels and we need the hash browns because, I'll go to the gym, do some work in the morning, go to the gym. I do, my praying and my seeking there, get a little more work done, creating a thumbnail on while I'm doing. I like to enjoy while I create. And then right afterwards, I go right to the store and I'll pick up a couple of things because I like to make dinner. I'm good at making dinner. I like to cook. I'm a homebody. I'm home all the time now and I love it. I do all the cleaning. I do all the cooking. I work hard too. And I provide for the family. Thanks to all of you. So get yourself an I Am a Witness t-shirt. Go to the store. Everything links in the description. So he sends me that text and I said, hey, I'm making liver for dinner tonight. And then I wrote, just kidding. And then he wrote back, whack. Because he's funny. So as I was watching the show and I was getting the hankering to have myself some, delicious liver, I start thinking of the old myth, of Prometheus and Prometheus giving fire to mankind and Zeus punishing him because of it. And the punishment was that an eagle would eat Prometheus's liver. Prometheus in mythology was the guy who, he basically created mankind for the gods, for Zeus, and he made all the animals so beautiful that he gave them the wisdom of the gods to fire and how to do this and everything else. And then Zeus wasn't too thrilled and took the fire back. Prometheus, loving this creation so much, stole the fire, gave it back to the humans. His punishment was to be chained to a rock as a eagle would come and eat his liver. All of this stuff I'm thinking about. I don't know why. because the story of Prometheus, as it turns out, is connected also to Pandora. Pandora, which I just did a whole show about, Pandora's box being released. Okay, so Zeus punishes Prometheus with the eating of the liver. All this is going to make sense. I know that I bounce around a lot, but just stick around because it's going to make sense and it's going to really blow your mind. It's going to blow your mind. So stick around, okay? Just bear with me. You're going to learn a little bit about mythology. So don't be salty in the comment section saying get to the point. I'm trying. So after he changed him to the rock, he has one of the gods create a woman. You know, because he wanted to punish mankind for taking the fire. He was like, he was pretty vengeful. So he creates this beautiful Pandora. Pandora ends up falling in love with like Prometheus's brother or something. They have a relationship. That's kind of a side note. That's kind of like a Olympus Housewives episode or something. But Pandora, Zeus also created this weapon, this terrible weapon, and he sealed it in a box. Kind of like that lead sarcophagus that I was talking about that was under the Notre Dame Cathedral. You should watch that show, considering it's about all of the misery and suffering and terrible stuff being released into the world. So he creates Pandora. Pandora, right, of course, has this box and is told not to open it. It's like basically because Zeus knew she'd open it, and then she opens it and she lets out all of the suffering and all the evil and all the misery and all that stuff is then unleashed in the world. But there was one shining light that was in that box, and it was hope. But Pandora got so scared she sealed it and didn't let hope out. So Pandora's box being open may not be a bad thing because maybe it's time to hope again. And this has to do with the Liver King. This has to do with me eating liver. This has to do with this terrible outbreak of the children because it's a disease of the liver. I didn't know that. I wasn't thinking about that. I had actually reached out to Donut. I sent them a text. I said, this thing with the children right now, this outbreak, it's making me nervous because it reminds me of this terrible dream that I had about Ethan back in September of 2020. Well, I actually had the dream in August, and I waited to do the show because there was so much negativity already with the virus of the crown. I didn't want to come on here and get everybody all spooked out that the last plague was coming still. Who wants to hear that news? And I don't know if that's the case because the plagues of Egypt, I have a whole video on it. If you get a chance, you should watch it. There, you can click the link right here. Now, of course, I'm not saying that dream was, but, it is. If it becomes a thing, it should be an encouragement that the Lord said, this is, what could be happening next. There are some things to look out for. I didn't really break. I should have probably written down what things you could look out for. But you could get jaundice. You start to look yellow. You have nausea. You pain. You get a rash. It was a thing. I had the dream. He was covered in a rash. I thought he had like. You see, the problem is that with every terrible plague that was on the land, Pharaoh still wouldn't let the people go until this last one. This last one that I didn't even want to talk about, and I'll tell you why, because I had a bad dream about Ethan, and I woke up and I associated it with the virus of the crown, and I woke up and I was sad because in the dream he had all of these, it looked like he had a really bad allergic reaction to something, and I actually screamed, Danielle, get the Benadryl. I was so worried. Just a terrible rash, and it's just strange. The whole thing is strange because for whatever reason, before I learned about all of this that was going on with the children, this is a big deal. The European Center for Disease Control has revealed Spain has now has the third highest incidence in Europe after registering 22 cases. Now it's surpassed by the United Kingdom with 163. That was so it went from 22 cases, now it has 163. All of a sudden the numbers are going up pretty quickly. And that's spooky. And the Japanese researchers and the couple of other people, they think it's connected to the virus of the crown. That's crazy. It's crazy because the videos that I did a year or so ago, one woe is past, another two to come. Then we had the other one. Now we have the last one. And the video where I shared that dream is the last plague coming. And then here we have this. Is this the straw that breaks the camel's back? But the Minister of Health, tried to quell the rising panic by insisting that the numbers are no higher than other years. And then the world, the WHO decided to agree with that. Say yes. They said that we're going to determine it. We're going to determine it. It's being assessed. We've got cases everywhere now. All of a sudden, these mysterious, they don't understand it. How weird is that, right? How weird is it that out of the blue, I'm thinking about somebody that I knew when I was young. Maybe I was a teenager. I was working at this deli, and they had it was the TCBY, I guess the country's best yogurt. It was the new one that just came out, and I remember everybody loved that place. Well, the young girl that worked there, we were both, maybe was a couple of years older than me. Maybe it was like 20. I was like 16 or 15 at the time. We remember, everybody knew, we just knew that she had gotten hepatitis from somebody there. And I always associated it being like a terrible thing, very scary. And I was thinking about this out of the blue. And then later that night, I stumble upon, I look it up, and then here it is happening right now. It's very strange. It's also very strange that I for whatever reason, I decide I'm going to just buy some liver and I'm just going to take it home and I'm going to cook it and I'm going to see how it goes. And you know what? Because I like to entertain you all, and I want to add some levity to this show, I'm going to take you through my journey of when I cooked it and ate it. It could be like a cooking show, right? Bada bing, bada boom. So I wasn't joking. I got this right here. I got to tell you, I'm a bit intimidated. It's not that great looking. We're going to do a little cooking with Jacob, huh? And you know what I do in my house? I use 3 ingredients. That's all I do. I got butter, I use garlic, and salt, and some pepper. That's it. Makes it easy. So we're going to try this liver. We're going to try it. Liver has a very strange consistency. Doesn't really seem like meat to me. I feel a little bit like Hannibal Lecter right now. Some fava beans. Okay. Bam! Got it going. It actually doesn't smell bad. All right, moment of truth time. Here we go. Here we go. Actually, it's not bad. It's not bad. Oh, it's not bad. It's not great. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not horrifying. You sure you don't want to try a piece? A little bite? A little teeny bite? Come on, man. You're 21 years old. You can have a little liver. Didn't you watch the Liver King on the Logan Paul? No? First time I'm eating liver. It's first time. First time for everything. You do almost feel like you're eating like the poop of an animal. A little bit. How's that? Not that I would know what that tastes like. So the Japanese researcher is suggesting there's a tie between the Omicron and the severe outbreak that we see right now, which has to do with the liver, which has to do with, the biggest podcast, like one of the biggest podcasts in the world, Logan Paul, Impulsive, right? With Jake Paul and the Liver King's on, right? Very strange. And I think about Prometheus And I look into Prometheus, and Prometheus' story is connected to Pandora. Pandora, which I just talked about on the show. Very strange. Then I talk to Alex Donut. I call him up and I'm talking to him, and Derek just met him and said, oh, by the way, he's so tall. He's like, I guess he's like, I said, how tall is he? How tall is the donut? And he goes, it's like 6'3". I'm like, oh, cool. I'm like 6 feet. That's tall. You don't look tall, Alex. But Alex and I were going back and forth, and you could see, I shared the text that I originally sent him, and I put this in the back burner. I wasn't planning on doing a show about this. I didn't really make the connection between, I didn't know I was supposed to do it until I'm at the gym, and I decided to put a tweet out saying, oh Lord, what's the show? Bring it to me. Bring it near. And as I'm talking to Donut, and I'm talking to him about, I'm telling him the story of Prometheus, and as I'm talking to him and I'm explaining the mythology and Prometheus and all that, he's like, this is so weird, dude. He doesn't talk like that, but I like to affect the voice so I'm talking. So this is me, this is Alex, dude. He doesn't talk like that. I just want to point that out. Alex is a very smart guy. But Alex is like,
dude, I just got this book right here. Look at this book.
And it was Prometheus Rising. Very strange. That's very strange to me. Like, what are the odds? Prometheus, the liver disease, all going down. So I say, okay, Lord, what is it you want me to tell everybody? What am I supposed to do? Is this the last plague? Is this it? Is this the thing that's coming? Is this the thing that everybody's got to worry about? Or is there a more beautiful message in it? So I go to like Bible Gateway, and I type in liver, and I want to read everything that there is to know about liver. And what do I find? Well, the passages I came up with, the ones that I felt like there weren't many, besides like, a sacrifice, you give a little piece of the liver as a sacrifice to the Lord, but the ones that really stood out, there were only like 3. But the one in Ezekiel 21 and the one in Proverbs 7, it's kind of like, all right, guys, and gals, and whoever you want to decide yourself to be, it's time to turn to God. The one in Proverbs talks about how, like, you don't really know how important it is to have faith until something bad happens, sadly. Talks about following after, the lies of the world, and it says, till an arrow pierces his liver, like a bird darting into a snare. You're caught, you don't expect to be caught. You're hurt, you don't expect to be hurt. Little knowing it will cost him his life. It's like you go through life sinning, believing that you're all there is, Trust the science as opposed to asking, is there more? Treating your fellow man like they are you. Do unto others as you want done to yourself. Following the golden rule to serve something more than yourself. It isn't until, you get caught in that trap or you get pierced in your liver that you figure it out. So now then, my sons, listen, pay attention to what I say. Don't let your heart turn to her ways, the wicked woman. We've talked about it, the Antichrist spirit, the spirit of Babylon the Great, following after the beast system. Don't follow after your lusts and your passions and everything else. Don't follow after that. It's going to provide nothing but suffering. Many are victims. She is brought down. Her slain are mighty throng. Her house is a highway to the grave, leading down to the chambers of death. Follow your passions. You follow your lust. You follow your sin. Follow your hate. You follow your pride. You follow your arrogance. You follow your, I know better than this. You follow that, it's going to lead you to the grave. The lips of a strange woman, the scripture says, a slippery slope. They're like honey at first, but it brings you down to the depths of hell. And hell is suffering. It's ignorance. But the one in Ezekiel is the one that I was really concerned about because I felt like it was a warning for everybody. So let me read this to you, okay? But before I read it to you, I want to put in perspective the fact that I had a weird dream about some kind of a plague that was going to come on the children. Boom. And then here's something that could be a plague. I'm not saying it's going to be. Let's pray that it's not. But could you imagine if it becomes a thing? Did God speak? I don't know. Tell me in the comment section. Was I just scared because of the virus of the crown? Strange that he had a rash. Strange that it was connected to this. Strange that they're now saying that it's connected to the virus of the crown. Omicron. Strange that I wake up and I'm watching an episode about the Liver King. Strange that I decide I'm going to go eat some liver. Strange that I'm at the gym not knowing what I'm going to talk about and I make a joke and then I pray, what am I going to do? And then I remember about the hepatitis, about the outbreak of the children, about the fact that it's affecting the liver. Whew. Strange that Alex had that book, Prometheus Rising. Strange. You see, the problem is that with every terrible plague that was on the land, Pharaoh still wouldn't let the people go. Until this last one. This last one that I didn't even want to talk about. And I'll tell you why, because I had a bad dream about Ethan. And I woke up and I associated it with the virus of the crown. And I woke up and I was sad because in the dream he had all of these, it looked like he had a really bad... So I'm going to pick this up. It's Ezekiel 21. I'm going to start at verse 18. Just listen. This is not my favorite translation. I got to get myself a King James. I like the King James because I studied it for years. So reading a lot of the stuff in here sounds awkward to me, a little weird because it's a little different translation, but it's an easier read. People ask me all the time, what Bible should you? I don't know. But the NIV seems to be easier to read. It seems to be a good translation. I don't know. I'm not a fan of saying this is the book and the only book, because we know that that's not true. The only book that matters is what God writes on your heart. You want to know the truth of God? You go here. The Word of God is not it's not a book. It's a living Word that's in you. It's Christ. Christ is the Word of God. Christ in you is the Word. This is the Bible. Just, for those people that like to say this is the Word. I get it, but it's not. It's the Bible. It's the Bible. The Word is in you. The Word is in your heart. It's close to your heart. Listen, your Word, O Lord, is truth. Everything's about the truth today, right? Okay. It's all about the liver. It's very strange. The timing, very strange. So let me read this to you. The word of the Lord, because liver is in this passage, but really this is actually kind of like a warning about what's coming. So just pay attention, I guess. The word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, mark out 2 roads for the sword of the king of Babylon to take, both starting from the same country. Make a signpost where the roads branch off to the city. Mark out 1 road for the sword to come against Rabbah of the Ammonites, and another against Judah and the fortified Jerusalem. 2 roads. You got the right and the left. You got 2 nations at war. Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? Mark it off, these 2 roads. Just saying. For the king of Babylon will stop at the fork in the road, at the junction of the two roads, to seek an omen. He will cast lots with arrows. He will consult his idols. He will examine the liver. The king of Babylon, the lies. King of Babylon, some could say, was Prometheus. Like some call it Lucifer, the king of Babylon. In the book, Lucifer is the king of Babylon. Prometheus, same thing, the light bringer, the fire bringer. He will consult his idols, examine the liver. Into his right hand will come the lot for Jerusalem, where he has set up battering rams, to give command to slaughter, to sound the battle cry, to set battering rams against their gates, to build up a ramp, and to erect a siege works. It will seem like a false omen to those who have sworn allegiance to him, but he will remind them of their guilt and take them captive. King of Babylon's going to come, set up two roads. You get what I'm saying? This is what's coming. The king of Babylon is coming. We're going to have this in the world. And it's going to seem like it's all been prophesied and all been laid out. Right? It's all been in the stars. This is the guy that's going to deliver us. But it will seem like a false omen to those who have sworn allegiance to him. But he will remind them of their guilt and take them captive. It's talking about persecution. If people don't agree and say, you're lying, that's not a false omen, you're not the Mashiach. People say, you're not the Mashiach. He's going to take them captive. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. So this is what God is saying. This is the message, if you will, about the liver king, the outbreak and everything else. This is the message. Because you people have brought to mind your guilt by your open rebellion, revealing your sins in all that you do. Right now, what do we see? We see people, doing such horrible things. Horrible things. God is moving. The world is changing. Things are being overturned. You notice this? You don't think God's in charge of everything? God's in charge of everything, people. That's why it's so important to just get aligned. If you just get aligned, all your suffering, all the things you've been through, all of it will make sense. All of it will pay off. Because God uses the hard times. He uses the things you've lost to bring you to greater things than these. Because you have rebelled, because you have revealed your sins openly, because you have done this, you will be taken captive. Notice it doesn't say the people that are serving God and doing the right thing are going to be taken captive. It talks about the bad people. This is why I said in the tweet, it's terrifying and also yet inspiring and wonderful. Because if you're serving God, it doesn't matter. You're going to be okay. So then now God addresses the people that are literally in charge of the literal places like Israel, Jerusalem, and all. He's like the princes of Israel, the people that are in charge. You profane and wicked prince of Israel, whose day has come, whose time of punishment has reached its climax. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Take off your turban. Stop dressing like you're so spiritual, right? Stop dressing like you're so enlightened. Remove your crown. Stop acting like, God appointed you. It will not be as it was. Things are changing, people. this is an important message. It's not going to be as it was. It isn't as it was, but it's about to get even crazier. And you know why? Because the lowly, that's right, that's you, that's me, the lowly will be exalted. And those that have been exalted are going to be brought low. A ruin! A ruin! I will make it a ruin! The crown will not be restored until he to whom it rightfully belongs shall come. To him I will give the crown. And you, son of man, and when you read this, sometimes you think to yourself, you're talking about yourself, right? You feel like God's telling you, you son of man, you do this. Now, I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm saying that when I read, you son of man, I feel like sometimes God's talking to me. You know, I feel like it's like he's saying, you got to tell people about this in Ezekiel. I'm not saying that's the truth. I'm just being honest with you and how I feel. I know it sounds goofy. And you, son of man, prophesy. By the way, prophecy, just sharing the testimony of Christ, expressing the truth, expressing what you feel is on your heart, expressing what you feel God is trying to say. And you, son of man, could have been like, and you, Jacob, prophesy and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. A sword drawn for slaughter, polished to consume and to flash like lightning. Despite false visions concerning you and lying divinations about you, it will be laid on the necks of the wicked who are to be slain. It's kind of like you're all worried that bad things are going to happen to you despite all these false visions, despite all these false divinations about how, you're going to be tortured and killed because you love the Lord and you're a good person. Despite this, it will be laid on the necks of the wicked who are to be slain. Wicked people. Whose day is come, whose time of punishment has reached its climax. God is done. He's done with the corruption. He's done with the lies. He's done. He's going to make things right. So God's saying to these wicked people, listen to this. Those who are like taking up arms, put your sword away. In the place where you're, in the land of your ancestry, I'll judge you. I'm going to pour out my wrath against you. I'm going to breathe my fiery anger against you. I'll deliver you into the hands of brutal men skilled in destruction. You will be fuel for their fire. Your blood will be shed in your land. You will be remembered no more, for I, the Lord, have spoken. Now, that sounds horrible and monstrous, right? But could you imagine if people are really corrupt? Could you imagine if they're doing terrible things? Could you imagine if all this was somehow created to create such misery and suffering and pain? Pandora's box was opened up and then closed right before hope was allowed to be given to the nations of the world? Well, I say Pandora's box is open again, and it's time for us to hope. It's time for us to believe. It's time for us to put our faith in the Lord Almighty, not in ourselves. I'm not perfect. I'm not even close to perfect. I just want to be used. I want to do the right thing. I love people. I forgive people. That's it. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do. Love others. Love God. You love others. You love God. We're not perfect, right? We're not supposed to be feeling like everything's perfect in the world, because the world isn't perfect. This isn't the kingdom of heaven. Kingdom of heaven is within you. And that's what we need to find. And that's where we need to go. And we need to put our faith there. But the good news is, the last plague is what finally brings people to the knowledge of the truth. The last plague is what delivers Israel from the bonds of Egypt. The last plague. And it seems like maybe there could be one that is coming. and one that is already here. I hope that's not true. But in any case, I'm just speculating, right? I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just speculating, just sharing my heart with all of you. And I hope it mattered. And I hope you have the best day ever. Do me a favor, like the video, share it around, tell your friends about it, and get yourself a copy of The Calling. The Calling, which in September 2022, which I wrote about in this novel, this book is going to be in high demand. So get a copy now, will you? Links in the description. Have the best day ever. I love you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
September 10th. Mars hangs closer to the Earth than it has in 6,000 years. Like the light that led men from the East to a child in a manger, it could well be a sign of good things to come. Thomas James shall be his name. The world will change because of him. In the small town of Bethel, in a time not unlike our own, a child with a great purpose is born. Years later, alienated by his peers and abused, Thomas suffers a devastating loss. When it appears he has nothing left to live for in the world, this is when his true calling begins. While trying to escape the sinister powers that be, a terrifying vision haunts him. Miraculous events seem to follow the peculiar young man as he struggles to come to terms with what he was born to do. The stage is set. The time is at hand. The truth will rise and a revolution will begin. The startling revelation of who Thomas James is, truly, will change the lives of those around him and set off a chain of events long ago foretold. There is more to this novel than one might think. Inside these pages hides a treasure just waiting to be discovered. So if you've ever wondered if there's more to life, or why it is we suffer, then this story will not only captivate you, it may just open your eyes to a truth that could set you free. Find out what is in us all that makes us heed the calling.